Um, Dr. Lee, will you remain on stage? And let us invite our chairman, Stephen Chan, to present his certificate to Dr. Lee. Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee and Stephen. Okay, we move to the last part of the conference, the last speaker for today, Mr. Rishwen Chander. Mr. Rishwen Chander is an engineer. Currently, he is a senior management personnel at RDW. RDW. He's specializing in inland shipping and non-road mobile machinery. He played key roles in the type approval policy, focusing on the 2016/1628 emissions regulations to ensure non-road mobiles machinery meet environmental standards. He will join us online today. So please, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Rishwen Chander to join us online.
You should now be able to see me, I think. I'll just start up my presentation and then things should be good. One moment, please. I am not able to share my presentation. The host is not enabling me to share. All right, I think it's working now, right? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to share some insights on hydrogen for the type approval authority from the Netherlands. In this new era of hydrogen, I would like to talk to you about the RDW, who we are, and what our projects are currently around hydrogen. So in short, the RDW is the Dutch type approval authority for everything with mobility and non-road mobile machinery. If you think about the RDW, we are mostly known in the Netherlands as the MOT inspectors, or the vehicle testing inspectors, registration of driver's licenses, and type approval of new vehicles. We keep records of this, and we are in good communication with our official partners like the CBR, that's the organization that does the driver's license, the CIB, which is the organization that is collecting fines and obligations, or financial department of the Netherlands, and many other parties of the official Netherlands parties. And this is foundation for services provided by our company, such as things in the Netherlands as the parking apps and other convenient services for car drivers. So we are a big company that is mostly working on with other parties like manufacturers for type approval, but also with citizens for their parking apps. So we are very broad in what we do. We also have to do this as safe and sustainable as possible, and we make this happen by inspecting, registering, and supervising all parts of this stuff. We are a so-called autonomous administrative authority. So that means that we are partly part of the government, but also can operate independently. And it makes us really flexible in how we can help our customers. So our vision from the RDW, we work on safety, sustainability, and legal certainty in mobility, and they support us, and we support customers to work in this same way, and also make sure that everything happens in the correct way. We're responsible for monitoring the safety and environmental sustainability of vehicles in the Netherlands, ensuring they meet technical standards and comply with the national and European regulation during type approval, so during the new process of a vehicle, but also in the service life of the vehicle. So we ensure that it's always every year or every 2 years we have an inspection to show that everything is working fine. We want people to actually feel that this service helps them. We strive for an integral surveillance to ensure that our monitoring efforts are aligned and effective. We control implementation to guarantee that the policies are applied consistently and responsibly by using smart information, offering accessible services. We are helpful, trustworthy, and adaptive to the consumer, so to the users of the vehicles, but also to the companies that make vehicles. We hope to help everybody to have a successful type approval process and a successful duration of their vehicle. So one of the things we as the RDW stand for, and that is especially interesting now with the new upcoming of hydrogen and other fuels, we believe in technical neutrality. We believe that our customers know best which technologies they need. They are the experts in this, and we as type approval authorities are helping you or the customer to make the best decision and how we can fulfill that in the type approval authority. Our commitment is to neutrality, means that we do not favor any specific technology. Instead, we focus on safety, reliability, and regulatory compliance. This allows us to support a wide range of vehicles technologies and doesn't leave any fabricator or OEM out because they use a different technology. We believe that every technology is useful, every technology can be used, it has its own unique benefits, and therefore neutrality is the most important thing for us, so that everybody can show these benefits to us. We promise our customers, and even you, fair and impartial treatment every time. So now more about the hydrogen projects that we have in the Netherlands. Sadly, I cannot give you any customer-specific information because the project is currently in development, and this means that we are not, we can't give those informations out. I give you some global ideas on how far these projects are and what we're presently witnessing with the development of various hydrogen concepts. So the projects I'm gonna talk about are spark-ignited monofuel, compression-ignited dual fuel, and fuel cells. So just in short, just for to give you an idea on how hydrogen currently works for type approval, hydrogen is as a fuel for both monofuel and fuel cell applications, has already been incorporated into the current reference fuel legislation in the European Union. This legislative includes underscores the growing recognition of hydrogen as a viable and sustainable energy source, and it is now easier to type approval something because the fuels are now recognized. At the RDW, we are dedicated to support the advancement of innovative hydrogen technologies and ensure they meet all safety and reliability and regulatory standards. But we try to work with the customer in how we get this true type approval to make sure that these technologies get accepted. So for spark-ignited monofuel, we are currently in the type approval process at the RDW in a very developed stage. So we are almost at the ending stage of a product from one of the OEMs, a European manufacturer, that is almost releasing a truck on spark-ignited monofuel hydrogen. The product will probably launch this year. This makes type approval from an emission standpoint easier than dual fuel. Sorry, I'll repeat that. Spark-ignited is from a type approval authority easier than dual fuel because the fuel is recognized as a reference fuel, which you need to use for this type approval, and a monofuel is already available in the type approval rules. So working on this project, we can work further than it is easier to select this type of fuel and this type of combustion engine to work on this process. This is called in the legislation of 2018-858. So that is the complete European legislation on personal and working vehicles. And there it is mentioned to work on this. Even though the fuel is mentioned and the combustion is allowed, the position of hydrogen tanks in construction is still a puzzle. And this also needs to fit in this same legislation. So you can imagine if you have a truck, the truck will extend because you now have hydrogen tanks on the back. That makes it more difficult to get it into the legislation, and there needs to be made changes to that particular design. This is all very advanced, and I hope that they will be coming out at the end of this year with a good presentation on how they did this and what the product is. From the get-go, this will be now easier because once the first the legislation has also recently been changed to make it easier because this is now recognized technology. This will ensure no technology paths have to be chosen, and this makes it easier for OEMs to make the same kind of solutions. It's good to know that because this is all new and legislation is always a bit behind on what is the status in Europe, the Vecto tool, that is the tool that is required to put in all your data and get let's say, an emission number for your technology, is still lagging behind the approval. And this makes it difficult to select the right, let's say, settings in the right data sets to get this approved. So it's a lot of working around stuff that isn't currently precisely in place. When you make a normal engine, it's all very laid out. And here you need to work around you have some workarounds to ensure that you get the correct numbers to be able to continue. For compression ignited dual fuel, this is currently a lot more difficult. And we see this in the projects that are getting announced, and we see this in the projects that are not coming true. Currently, dual fuel hydrogen, so having hydrogen pumped in via direct injection or via port fuel injection or even via mixer, and then ignited it with a pilot fuel, is not a approved technology. So this ensures that it's not something that is currently already been done, and the legislation doesn't allow it. So you need to prove that this is successful. To prove this, you have something called an Article 39. That's in the 2018-858, so the European legislation. There's something called Article 39, and there's a procedure, a framework for the approval of market surveillance of motor vehicles for concurrent solutions that are not yet legislated. So if something falls out of your legislation, you need to make a 39 procedure that makes sure that you can prove that it is actually a good solution. Article 9 provides steps for approving vehicles that use non-reference fuels or non-reference technologies and ensure the meeting safety and environmental standards. So this is a big step in the type approvals. What we see is that because this is a difficult step, no projects are currently being type approved as of now. However, we are in contact with a lot of manufacturers that are thinking about using this type of system, and we're supporting them on the difficulty around this legislation. And one of the more difficult parts is if you work on a dual fuel, you can switch between the amount of fuels that you want to mix. There's no legislation with the minimum or maximum allowed of mixture. And there's also no, let's say, defined rule set on what is allowed or what isn't allowed on this part. So every time you work around this, you might need to do a new Article 39. So as the same as with the monofuel, the Vecto tool, so the tool that is used to actually implement this for your type approval, is also still lagging behind on this because the legislation is also lagging behind. In the new legislation, so the third amendment, the Amendment Act, so the act that is allowing you to basically tell you how you should fulfill the normal legislation, it is now mentioned. So the legislation is coming up. And hopefully we will have some good legislation how to do a fuel in the meantime. Sadly for us from the RDW, as in our type approval, at least in my work, but also through the RDW, fuel cells are included in the new approval legislation. So they are usable. However, to our knowledge, we have no manufacturers that are currently working on it and are talking to us. So they might talk to another type approval authority, but we don't have any contact with them. But what we've heard from the managers of the manufacturers that have looked into this is that cooling these fuel cells for our heavy-duty vehicles is still an issue. So now for the non-road mobile machinery part. We see some interest in the non-road mobile machinery for hydrogen, and also, again, the different kind of solutions, spark-ignited monofuel, compression-ignited dual fuel, or a variant of both. So hydrogen is becoming increasingly more popular, and we see them in all the different ranges in the non-road, all the different power ranges. And we are currently the first European type approval authority that has successfully given a European approval for hydrogen non-road mobile machinery. The current legislation is a challenge for hydrogen because the non-road mobile machinery regulation, so that is the 2016-1628, doesn't have a mention of hydrogen in the reference fuel numbering. So the regulation is less flexible when it comes to alternative fuels than for the heavy-duty vehicles, because the hydrogen, it just isn't mentioned. And vehicles using non-reference fuel must undergo the same kind of procedure. So that's Article 35 in this legislation, but it's pretty identical to the Article 39. However, the main difference for the non-road is that this is only for the engine, and you can have to approve an engine type. For the heavy-duty vehicles, you are approving the whole vehicle. And for the non-road mobile machinery, there's another legislation that is for the whole vehicle. So it's a bit more different, and you're now focusing only on an engine. So the Article 35 procedure, just like the Article 39 of the previous one, is complex. It's time-consuming. It slows down the market introduction for hydrogen from, let's say, for the first project, but it's mandatory because the fuels are not listed yet. So just a small introduction of the Article 35. This is also pretty much the same for the Article 39, small differences, but in main lines it's the same. The approval authorities shall grant an EU type approval referred to paragraph 1 as the Article 35. That is the main line of this article. And the goal is for this procedure to enable new technologies which legislation has not kept up. So to simplify, the following condition has to be met. The starting reason why the new technology is not possible with the current legislation. So for hydrogen, let's say hydrogen spark ignited, the hydrogen is a reference fuel, is not a reference fuel. So from the legislation type, we just can't continue. Then you have to describe the environmental implications of this new technology or the new concept. So what are the implications of using hydrogen in this new technology, and the measurements taken to ensure equivalent or better environmental performance than that of what the regulation allowed. So if you go from an engine that now uses hydrogen spark ignited, you need to compare it to, let's say, a diesel stage 5 engine of the same capabilities. And then you need to compare every aspect of the engine and just describe, right, this is why we think this is better, because of hydrogen has less emissions or no emissions. That's better because of the better fuel economy, and you can just describe everything. With that description, you now also have need to include a test description and the results of those tests to show we've described why we think this engine is better, and here is the proof of how we show you that it is better. So this is really short how you do an Article 35 procedure, and we from the RDW, when we do an Article 35 testing, we say you need to do the exact same testing as for a diesel engine, for what you're comparing it to, so we can compare those tests equivalently to each other and actually show, look, this is actually better. So during this testing procedure, we provide a national type approval. So during the start of this procedure, we say, okay, we can, after discussing if it's a good solution, we can give you a national type approval. And from that point on, you can start selling this the solution in the Netherlands as national. And after a period, so after the discussion period is over and you have the Article 35 procedure is finished from the Netherlands, then we send it over to the European Commission, and they then decide if they are agreeing with this Article 35 procedure or they are against it. So depending on how good the testing and the results is, and we have done it now and we know what the Commission wants. So We send it over, they agree with it. And from that point on, the national type approval will be changed into a European-wide type approval, the same like a normal one. And now the product can be sold across Europe. So as I've told you, we've done this procedure. We've done it with JCB. We have the first successful following of the Article 35 procedure for the first European non-road mobile machinery hydrogen type approval. This is a spark ignited engine with hydrogen port fuel injection. Well, I put some specs on the screen and them up. So it's a 55 kilowatt engine. They've done the NRS V3 category, so all the test cycles included with that category. It's a 4-cylinder, 4.8 liter displacement, and they use gaseous hydrogen with that ISO standard. The fun part about the Article 35 procedure that now has been succeeded is that every time you do such a procedure, the procedure is getting updated in the legislation. So now we've done a spark ignited approval for this category, and this will now be updated in the new revision of the legislation and will be included as a type of engine that is allowed in the legislation. So for companies that are now that now also want to make such an engine, it will be easier to do such. Just from point of reference, this hydrogen engine will be used in a backload handler and a telehandler, and it's a very universal engine that can be used for a lot of times. And the whole timeline for this approval was approximately 2 years from the, let's say, start of the actual work. Then before the interviewing, there was also a part of, let's say, meetings and just coming together, like what is the good solution. And then from the point we actually started to the end, it was a process of 2 years. So thank you for your time. That is in short what I can share you about our partners. And I hope I gave you a bit of an idea how we as the RDW are involved with European type approval, and especially for the new technologies of hydrogen. So we are experienced in fulfilling these kind of type approvals for non-road mobile machinery and heavy-duty vehicles. So please contact us if you're looking for a type approval information, or let's say if you actually have a product in Europe for your hydrogen vehicles or concepts. And thank you for your time. So if you have any more questions, this is the contact information, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rishwen. Okay, it's almost to the end of the conference. So before we finish up to have a wrap up of our conference, let us invite our chairman, Engineer Steve Chen, to give us a closing remark for today's conference. So, Engineer Steve Chen.